Hi guys, John here at Common Sense Outdoors. So we're going to talk about the bird perch today, bird perch snare. In the last video we talked about the elderberry and the stalk being one of the things that's useful for a survival situation. And the reason the stalk is so useful, first of all, you can make this bird perch snare with any stick. I've seen a lot of guys use a stick like this and they're doing it at their house and they just drill a hole. Well, you can get that idea out of here. It's not realistic. The ones that are doing it right with a solid type of wood are whittling down both sides and making it flat and then carving their hole into the flat section instead of trying to make a hole through a whole round stalk. The big advantage to an elderberry stalk like this is the piffy center. If we take our knife and just start carefully carving out the piffy center, now to make our bird perch snare, we only have to make a hole through one side of this. Because the center is completely piffy, we're basically making a hollow tube here. So if we take our knife, I don't know if you can see me down here. If we take our knife and just carefully start making a hole, if you try to do it too fast, you'll split this elderberry stalk out. Just spin it nice and slow and easy. Let the knife do the work. I'm not putting very much pressure on it at all. Get some of this bark out of the way so you guys can see it better probably. Stick here already for the perch part. I'm going to go ahead and check and see how I'm doing. It's probably pretty good right there by the time I get the string in it. Now for the back side, I don't even have to make a hole with this elderberry stalk. What I can do is just take my knife and split right into that stalk 2 times. And then take that split and just break it out. Now I have a way for my string to go through the backside without having to make 2 holes or 1 large hole, and clean some of that pith out of my way. Okay, then we're going to need our snare loop. I've said it before, 120-pound bank line is perfect for any bird snare. Just going to put an overhand loop in the end. I'm going to give myself a 1.5 foot to play with. Actually, let's go ahead and give us about 2.5 feet just to make sure we have enough. Then all I got to do is run my tag in through my loop. That gives me my snare loop. I like my snare cordage to go underneath my perch. Just seems to work better. Feed that cordage through the hole. Stick our perch in. And then bring our loop up on top of the perch. I think it seems to work better to have the cordage going under your perch because the loop sets on top of the perch better. Coming from underneath and bringing it and laying it over the top. You see my perch is a little bit long, so we'll fix that just like that. Okay, the next thing we need is a weight source on the back side. Now here's one of my tips. You've all probably seen the bird perch snare before, and you've probably seen it done with a rock tied onto the string, which works fine, but finding the perfect rock, weight wise and shape wise, to be able to tie this cordage onto it, chances are you're going to tie and cross tie on a rock in order to get that rock to stay. Now if I use something other than a rock, I'm just going to put a simple another overhand loop on this end, and I'm going to feed that. Oh, well, you guys can see me there. I'm going to feed my cordage back through that overhand loop, giving me another snare loop basically on the other end. Now if I just take a piece of wood that's similar in weight to what I would have used as a rock, this is a pretty light piece of wood. It may look like too much, but it's not as heavy as it looks. And I slide that piece of wood into that cordage. I just happen to have a nice notch on that, so there's no way it's slipping off of there. I now have a weight source on the back of my perch. So what I'm going to do next is get this stuck in the ground. I'm going to take my perch, and get my snare loop opened up to where I like it. Then I'm going to hold that there. I'm going to stick my perch in the hole. That should hold my weight source. Then I'm just going to lay my snare over the perch, just like so. Now let's talk about a couple other tips. We've already talked about an easier way with this pithy centered elderberry stalk instead of a hard piece of wood. We've already talked about just using a stick instead of a rock as a weight or a motor. Another tip on this I'm going to give you, looking for a leaf. Stay right there. Isn't as big as I'd like, but if I take a leaf, and because I have this hollowed out stalk, I can put a leaf down in here, right? Whoop. I didn't actually hollow it out as much as I should have, but if I put a leaf in there so that it sits right there, a lot of people, you've probably seen somebody make a point on the top of this, really pointy top to this shaft to keep birds from landing on top of it. Well, if I have this hollowed out right, there we go, and I put a leaf right there, it's going to stop them from landing here where I don't want them, but they will land out here where my perch is. So that's another tip. And lastly, my tip is if you've seen anybody else do this, they've probably told you where to set this would be on the edge of a meadow or a field. They're correct partially, but I'm going to disagree mostly on where to put this. I don't know how well you can see it, but back there, about 3/4 of the way across this meadow, there's a snag sticking up that looks kind of like a post. And we've camped right over here on the other side of this meadow more days than I can count. And I've sat over there by the campfire at our camp. If I had $1 for every time I watched a blue jay or a camp robber laying on that post, that dead snag out there, I'd have a lot of dollars. My point on that is, yes, I can set this on the edge of this meadow and catch a bird. But from what I've learned in watching this meadow over the years and many times of camping here at this spot, yes, small birds will go around the edges from tree to tree, perch to perch. Your bigger birds like your blue jays and your camp robbers or your crows, they will go across the middle of this meadow. This meadow is probably 60 yards wide. The bigger birds will cut across the middle. The smaller birds will skirt the edges. So if it's a survival meal you're looking for, I'd be looking for that bigger meal, at least that blue jay sized bird. And they will cut across the middle. So I would say take this bird perch snare, instead of setting it on the edges of a field or a meadow, I'd set it right in the middle. Now the more of these you make, the more chances you have to get a bird. This is kind of like setting snares. You aren't just going to set one. The more of them you make, the better chances that a bird's going to land on it. But when they come along and land on it, they land on your perch. If you have your perch set in there correctly. They land on your perch. Wow. Well, there it finally fell out. I didn't have it in there just right, but you'll get your bird snared right here. Another thing I don't know if I mentioned is you don't want this weight too heavy. You don't want it too light. You want the weight for the speed, but if it's too heavy, you can snap the bird's legs off right here. So you have to be careful on having the right amount of weight. And you definitely want to get your perch stick in there better than I had that one. Let me try it one more time before we go. Hold on. It's also why you want to test all your traps before you walk away. I didn't have it snub-nosed enough, I'm guessing. Whoa. Must be getting closer to having it right now. Fell out before I could even get it. There we go. Alright guys, well, I hope you got something out of it. I hope you liked the tips. Some of them or all of them, whichever the case may be. As always, I appreciate your subscriptions, your comments, your likes, your views, and your support. And we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.